Hello, Tushar. Welcome to the Pamphlet podcast. Union government has announced that they will include the caste enumeration in the upcoming general census, right?
Hmm.
So clearly, the social media is up in the arms. Dono sides, both the sides, there are BJP supporters, there are Congress supporters. Some are happy, some are unhappy on either side of the spectrum. So let's do one thing. Let's start with a lowdown on what just happened. What your thoughts are on the union government making this surprise move, and then we'll take it forward.
Look, let's start from the beginning. Caste census is a policy move, just like welfare is, right? Now, welfare, BJP also does it, Congress also does it. BJP does it in a non-cash manner, at least in the center. Congress's idea is to do it through handout of cash. I'm just trying to give you a metaphor here to begin an explanation. So, when you talk about welfare, there are two ways of looking at welfare. One, which keeps the fiscal deficit in check, which keeps the state budget in check, which gives the center ample of money to spend on infrastructure, and which actually enables people, like what you saw in the last 11 years toilets, gas cylinders, houses, Jal Jeevan, etc. The other side is the Congress, which says let's give people annually a certain sum of rupee, and that will enable them in the long run. So, two parties, a very, very contrasting approach to welfare. Correct? Now, similarly comes the question of caste census. Yesterday, when Ashwini Vaishnaw did the cabinet briefing, he announced the caste census in the upcoming census of 2025. Now, in 2011, also, the details were collected, but they were collected in a very unscientific, very arbitrary manner. And that is why that survey never got anywhere. But now you have to understand that BJP is not approaching the caste census the way Rahul Gandhi is. That's why I started with that whole metaphor about welfare contrast because the caste census also having the same story. When Rahul Gandhi talks about caste census, for him, caste census is his route to divide Hindus politically but also create room for religious reservations. That is why Rahul Gandhi always attaches this argument that I want to exceed the 50% reservation mark. Now, if someone is saying that I am speculating, Rahul Gandhi's party has already hinted on religious reservations in Karnataka in the public works contract, which we recently saw. And one of their reasoning was that look, there is a certain population of Muslims in Karnataka, so we have to give them reservation. RJD even has stood for religious reservation, which is the key alliance partner, and undoubtedly even the Samajwadi will, when the time comes, given the MY formula they rely on. So Rahul Gandhi's idea of caste census stems across two things. One, he wants to include both caste reservations and religious reservations. And number two, he wants to exceed the upper hard limit of 50%. Now let's come to the BJP. BJP, a lot of people are thinking, has actually embraced this idea after 2023-24 when Rahul Gandhi brought up the idea of Jitni Abadi Utna Hak. Rahul Gandhi brought this idea up before the state assembly elections of Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan, and Telangana. In the run up, he started with Jitni Abadi Utnang because that was his thrust, his political thrust after the victory in Karnataka. BJP in 2021, 2 years before Rahul Gandhi started on this charade, introduced the 127th Amendment. They passed the 127th Constitutional Amendment, which did what? It allowed the state governments subcategorization of OBCs and empowered them to rejig how the OBC reservations are done. So, for example, within the OBC framework, which has 27% reservation, OBCs, pardon me, might have different communities. So one community might be hogging a lot of those benefits, say reservations, say any welfare benefits or things like that. So the BJP's idea, why the 127th Amendment was that why can't we think about a quota within a quota where we can empower the less represented communities? The BJP never spoke about breaching the hard limit of 50%. The BJP never spoke about exceeding the reservations from what they are right now. The BJP never spoke about including religious reservations as well. The BJP never spoke about private sector reservations. But the BJP only said that there is an OBC bracket, there is a huge OBC framework which doesn't vote homogeneously, which is not economically homogeneous, which is not socially homogeneous. And within that OBC bracket, there are a lot of communities which are underrepresented because of their numbers. Now, for example, in UP and Bihar, within the OBC framework, you might say that the Yadavs hog a lot of the benefits, say the government jobs, especially when the Samajwadi Party was there. Yadav clan would get a lot of the jobs. Not that they can't avail them, but they are the only ones availing them. What happens to the smaller communities? Right? So the BJP stance was very, very clear in 2021 itself. We want to ensure every OBC community is represented, and we want to give that right to the state governments. Yesterday, when this issue of caste census came up, the problem is people drew their own conclusions. They thought this has something to do with Rahul Gandhi. I just explained it doesn't. Whenever you think about Rahul Gandhi's caste census or BJP caste census, just do a simple litmus test, which we call the triple test of the Supreme Court. Think of it as a litmus test on any caste discussion in India. The triple test says three tests you need to do. One, you need to, through a dedicated commission at the state government level, actually factor in the number of communities and the number of people within these communities. Number two, you need to create a framework where there's proportional representation for these communities. And number three, within this proportional representation, you cannot exceed the hard limit of 49-50%. Rahul Gandhi talks about 60%, Tejasvi Yadav talks about 80, 90, 95%, depending on his mood. That's all hogwash. The three tests are very, very clear. The Supreme Court's triple test is very, very clear. Count the number, proportional representation, and no exceeding the limit. Now, you compare the BJP and Congress using this litmus test, and then let's talk about the caste census. I mean, just create an imaginary differentiation column here. BJP says rejigging within the OBC bracket, not exceeding 50%, no private sector reservations, no religion based reservations. Congress says, I don't care about the rejigging part. I want to include religion reservations. I want to include private sector reservations. I want to take the reservation upper hard limit beyond 50% to maybe as high as 90%, depending on who or which of the ally of the India alliance is speaking. So please tell me, how are the Congress and the BJP approaching the caste census in the same manner? How is the announcement by the BJP a testament to Rahul Gandhi's success? Rahul Gandhi came in the presser yesterday. He's suddenly saying, oh, the government has heard us. Rahul Gandhi is probably falling into the trap, and he actually fell into the trap because when Rahul Gandhi started addressing that press conference, he started speaking about Article 15.5. He started speaking about reservations in private education institutions, which also, by the way, exceeds the institute or rather, excludes the institutions which are run by minorities, right? So Rahul Gandhi is simply falling into trap saying, हाँ हमें ये मिल गया है, अब हमें आप 15(5) के तहत रिजर्वेशन दीजिए प्राइवेट इंस्टीट्यूशंस में, एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूशंस में, which by 2029 will snowball into private sector reservations from the Congress's side. That is going to be Congress's next agenda. Now that will become a fault line when it comes to the voters. They'll decide between the BJP and the Congress, while Congress talks about private sector reservation, which means the end of their political fortunes in at least the urban seats or the urban seats. Right? But again, the entire explanation I gave you right now is that, like welfare, BJP and Congress have very contrasting approach, very different results. How welfare works in Maharashtra is very different to how welfare works in Karnataka, and it shows in the state budget. How welfare works in Haryana and how welfare works in Himachal Pradesh are very different given the two different parties, and one state is in a very strong position, one state is in a very weak position. Similarly, on the caste census as well, BJP has one approach, Congress has different approach, and then marked out the differences for you. I can do it again happily if you want me to.
No, so in fact, a lot of people are saying that the caste census for the BJP supporters, especially that when Rahul Gandhi came up with the idea of caste census and when he has been talking about it at all his rallies, everyone on the BJP side, the BJP supporters, called it the divisive politics.
Hmm.
Now that the union government has brought it up, people are also saying, a lot of the supporters, in fact, some are unhappy with the announcement, and some are saying that this is the step in the right direction. So obviously, when those who are saying that this is a step in the right direction, people are the BJP supporters themselves. Some of them are calling out the other side, saying that you are flipping and you are the IT cell, you are this, you are that. Uh, I want you to explain that how the difference between the Rahul Gandhi's caste census, the BJP's caste census, and how is the change now the BJP's announcement is not really flipping the other side or taking, bending the knee to Rahul Gandhi.
Okay, first things first, people should understand the announcement yesterday is not an isolated policy move. It's a block in the continuation of one large policy. The rants I saw yesterday on my timeline, they all were missing the forest for the trees. At this point, I'm convinced that the people who identify, nameless people, rather, they don't identify themselves, these nameless, faceless people who somehow think that they know more than the government, they absolutely have no idea of how policy works. This is not downplaying their sentiments or undermining their commentary, but then they are ill informed and they do not read. Rahul Gandhi's party started with the objective of a minority subquota back in 2011 in the final months of the UPA. When I was discussing Waqf also, I just said one thing that in the final years of the UPA, when they always almost knew that they were going to be on the brink of being voted out before the Chief Minister of Gujarat stepped up on the scene, they did three things. They started playing with three things. One was the set of the Waqf Amendments Act of 2013. Two, the communal violence bill. Three, the push for the minority subquota of 4.5% by diluting the OBC subquota. Right? So Rahul Gandhi has been talking about this before he was even voted out. Now, what he brings up in 2023 is Jitni Abadi Utna Haq. He's continuing that old policy. People think when he says Jitni Abadi Utna Haq, it only translates into SCs, STs, OBCs. People, he's not talking about Jitni Abadi Utna Haq for Hindus. He's talking about Jitni Abadi Utna Haq for Indians. So tomorrow, when Muslims become 20, 25, 30% of the population in any state, his own state governments will make a pitch that, look, they're 30% here. Jitni Abadi Utna Haq, you need to have religious reservations. And they have made that pitch in the past as well when they were in power. We've seen what they were trying to do in Karnataka as well in the name of public work contracts. You pick up the Congress's manifesto. I cannot recall the page number, but I think it was page number 8, point number 6. They talk about having a fair share of contracts for the minorities. You can probably check up the Congress's manifesto of 2024. So people, they get confused, Nirva. They think Jitni Abadi Utna Haq is for Hindus. No, it's for Indians, which means you'll have religion-based reservations, which Rahul Gandhi has given ample proof of. Number two, has the BJP flipped? Absolutely not. The BJP, again, I'm stressing this 127th Amendment. Google it. Please Google it. 2021, the BJP has stood for the OBC subcategorization. Now, what does the OBC subcategorization solve? In the long run, the Congress is now looking to dilute the rights of the OBCs and give it away to the Muslims. That is what we were seeing in Karnataka. The BJP is saying within the OBC communities, there are a lot of Hindus which are underrepresented even now. We don't want to exceed the reservation, the upper limit, but we want to ensure those communities are also fairly represented. The triple test of the Supreme Court addressed, right? Hindu causes addressed, especially the Hindus who are from actually marginalized communities who are not even in the discussion, discourse right now. So that is what the BJP was been trying to do since 2021. Now, Rahul Gandhi started his pitch in 2011. BJP started in 2021. How is it about Rahul Gandhi's rant from the last 1 year? It's not. That is why the first thing I said was this is not about reservations. This is about taking away that one agenda which Rahul Gandhi was fooling the people with. Entire right wing thinks that Jitni Abadi Utna Haq means it's all about the Hindus. It's not. That is why I'm saying the announcement yesterday should not be assumed as a single policy move. It's a continuation. in a long series of policies which will eventually benefit the Hindus. Now, that one important question that keep coming up was that this is divisive politics. Rahul Gandhi, caste census idea is that I want to talk about equity. I want to talk about wealth redistribution. His manifesto's first point was affirmative action. If you read what he wrote in 2024, his party wrote, he uses caste census to map the economic well-being of the people, which he said in his presser also yesterday, and thereby making a case for wealth redistribution. He doesn't use the caste census for the rejigging within the OBC framework. This is where again BJP and Congress are very, very different, right? Rahul Gandhi uses the caste census to make a case for religion-based reservations when he'll say that, oh, look, jitni abadi utna, and suddenly the Muslims will also stand up that we are 20% in this country, where are our reservations? To which I only have one answer always, that after 75 years of independence, if we had to dole out reservations to Muslims on the basis of religion, then why the hell did we create East Pakistan and West Pakistan in 1947? Fair point. So this is again where BJP and Congress are different. People say that this is divisive politics by the BJP. People don't realize that in Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, to give you the example of the two biggest political heavyweight states, it's the dominant OBC caste that actually hog all the benefits, hog all the welfare policies and everything. And it's just to ensure that proportional representation for the less represented communities also. And those less represented communities that often actually go with the BJP at the state level and at the center level. The Yadavs don't go with the BJP in these two states. And they are the dominant players in these two states, right? So I don't know how this is about Rahul Gandhi being proved correct, or this is about Rahul Gandhi's idea. Firstly, people are decoding or interpreting Rahul Gandhi's idea incorrectly, very, very incorrectly. They're just looking at the Hindu lens. Number two, they are not analyzing the policy moves that have already done by the BJP. Number three, they are not going into the history of religion-based reservations that the Congress has already made a pitch for almost 14 years ago, and the Supreme Court squashed it there. Then very interesting idea comes up is that Haryana mein BJP in the second tenure, when it won the election 2019, it did not get a majority, so it had to ally with the JGP. They actually introduced the 75% reservation in private sector for locals, which of course it's a very daft move. But people don't realize Haryana BJP was actually forming the government on that promise alone. They announced it also, and it was struck down by the Punjab and Haryana court. It never even made it to the Supreme Court. And in the end of the day, BJP got its 5 years. JJP vanished after those 5 years. The announcement was made, never implemented. Haryana still has a strong industrial growth. With it, it's almost like its per capita is now equivalent to Tamil Nadu, and it's becoming one of the richest states in India. At least in North India, it is the richest state already. So you have to understand how these games are often played. I was very sort of taken aback yesterday by the kind of commentary I read, because people just focused on the two words, caste census. They're not going into the history of it. Number three, another point, I'm lost count of numbers by now. People don't have to necessarily vote on the basis of caste census. The government is not saying that, okay, now that I have your caste, you're obligated to vote on how you are divided by caste. Your religion will still be asked for, right? You're going to identify for me. I'll be like a Hindu first. If I want to identify, I'll say Baniya first, or I'll say no, I don't identify to any caste. That's my call, right? But I'm still a Hindu first. So I don't know why really people confuse the two things, that, oh, now because there is a caste census, the Hindu voter will be divided. No, the caste have always been in play. The caste informally have always been in play. Was the Hindu voter divided? Absolutely not. I mean, it is divided in the larger scheme of things, but where it needs to unite, it's united. So I don't know. A lot of issues are being sort of confused together because people want to sort of vent out their frustration about something. That is what I felt yesterday. You want to argue on facts? Let's argue on facts. You tell me, Rahul Gandhi did that presser. The first thing he says is, I want to map which section of people hold how much economic wealth. Census is not going to map the economic well-being of the people. It's not going to do that. Caste census does not mean an economic caste census. Rahul, not a Rahul Gandhi agenda. Rahul Gandhi says, I want you to implement 15.5, which is reservation in the private sector, private educational institutions. The government is not doing that. So how is it Rahul Gandhi's agenda? Rahul Gandhi's India Alliance is saying we want to have religion-based reservations. The government is not doing that. So I don't know how this is Rahul Gandhi's victory. If anything, Rahul Gandhi has walked right into a trap. And now going forward in 2029, he'll have to make private sector reservations the primary pitch for his poll, for Lok Sabha polls, which means he'll alienate a majority of the urban seats.
Right. Actually, when we another argument that was seen in favor of the BJP's caste census announcement was that if a government wants to form policies, they need to know the audience, the people, the caste, so that the benefits can be the policies can be formed and formulated accordingly. Right. So that has been one of their very strong points. On the other hand, it is the Congress which has been on the back foot on these lines. They want to redistribute wealth, as you said. It's also about the religious based OBC reservation. So now 2 points here. What happens to what do you think there is merit in the argument that the BJP led caste census would be better for policy formulation? And B, where does that leave the Muslim OBC categories, the Christian OBCs? How do you see that also getting into some the correction way? Because see, for if you've converted to from Hinduism to another faith, you also should be leaving back the baggage that came with it. So once you go to a so-called casteless societies, uh, you should stop being identifying as the caste as OBC Muslim or OBC Christian, as a lot of people have been rightly saying.
Yeah.
Do you see that changing anytime in future?
See, that's an important point, and the Supreme Court ruling on this issue is very, very clear. If someone has converted from Hinduism, shifted to Christianity or Islam, they cannot avail the benefits of reservation. The Supreme Court is very clear, and it aligns with the triple test I was speaking about. Number two, you asked about the Muslim OBCs. Muslim OBCs are also Muslims first. Like Hindu OBCs are Hindus first, Muslim OBCs are Muslims first. Now, if they have converted to Muslim Islam or they have been practically born into Islam, they are not going to be beneficiaries of reservation. It cannot stand the test of the courts. Right? That is how the constitution has been made. Religion reservations is not a part of a constitution. Right? Now you talk about the policy making. Look, you are just looking at policy making. I'm also looking at delimitation in the future. I'm also looking at Western Uttar Pradesh. I'm also looking at Eastern Bihar. I'm also looking at pockets within India where we do not know which caste or which community holds how many numbers, how they are stacked up against the minorities or other classes. For example, in Punjab, everyone was talking about, UP and Bihar, including me. I forgot writing about Punjab. Jat Sikhs wield all the political power, but they are only 12% in the state. 12 to 15%. Does anyone ever talk about Dalit Sikhs? Congress actually played that card back in 2022 when they appointed Charanjit Singh Channi, but then there are some media reports saying he's a crypto Christian and whatnot. I don't know, it's not confirmed. But there are several parameters to it also. Forget the policy making. By the time this data comes out, by the time it starts getting implemented, I think most of the welfare policies would have attained the saturation, like Jal Jeevan Awas, Ujjwala, all these things which are really enabling the rural development. But if you look at the delimitation, where you'll have to practically re-engineer Lok Sabha seats, you're looking at new constituencies, and that is how delimitation always works. It happened in Delhi also before the 2008 elections. So you'll need the numbers, and the numbers you have right now are not even accurate. Now, people are saying that the BJP might use this data to increase the reservations. There are absolutely no evidence of that. There is absolutely none. The BJP might introduce private sector reservations. There's absolutely no evidence of that. None. The BJP will be dragged into that fight by the Congress. That I'm quite sure of. But the voters know better. So this is the crux of it, Nirva. 127th Amendment, OBC rechecking, getting lesser represented communities more visibility, right? No agenda of the Congress being followed, be it 15.5, be it private sector reservations, be it religion reservations, right? So you tell me, how is it about Rahul Gandhi? It's a policy call made from a very different perspective. Something that the BJP announced back in 2021 itself.
Right. We have a question from one of our viewers. Maharshi is asking that if you give proportionate representation without exceeding 50%, it means you have to lower the reservation of SC, ST. That is not politically correct. So, uh, yeah,
No, within the OBC framework, you have a lot of reservation. No? You're talking about 27% OBC, then SC is around 15%, ST is around 7.5%. You don't have to lower SC, ST. Mind you, in August 2024, the Supreme Court's ruling on subcategorization within the SCs also came out. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of it. So you never know. Tomorrow, you actually might have subcategorization done for the SCs as well within the caste census, right? So you don't have to lower the reservation for SCs and STs. I don't think that the government will move in that direction. That's a Pandora's box. But within that 27%, 28%, you'll have to recheck. That is where the proportional representation comes in. Don't look at proportional representation from the definition of Rahul Gandhi. They already have a certain percent of reservation. Within that amount, the rejigging will have to happen. And mind you, Rahul Gandhi till date has never spoken about subcategorization, be it for STs, SCs, or OBCs.
right, right. Uh, there's one Dharma Rakshak on user who's asking a question that we said that 50% cannot be crossed. Then how did Telangana cross it? And the court said nothing.
No,
Why was the 50% cap? Why the 50% cap won't be demolished? Is what
no,
he's asking.
I think Andhra went for it. That is when they had got the whole. It was struck down by the courts 5 times. I'm assuming he's talking about the whole Andhra Pradesh case, which happened back in the 2000s, when the Congress government was there. This was before Andhra and Telangana were divided. So the court actually struck it down. In Telangana also, if it has increased, I'm not sure if he's talking about Telangana now or Andhra then, but in Andhra then it was struck down. That is why, when that whole Andhra thing was struck down, when the religious reservation was introduced, the UPA too actually went to the Supreme Court as the government and the center to make a pitch for minority support. And that was the birth of it. That actually started in Andhra Pradesh, and then they went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court also quashed it. So that is another thing.
Right.
And
I
one
have.
more thing, yeah. The one
Hmm.
important question I think is also asked is, what is the guarantee that 50% reservation won't be exceeded? Right? At this point, the only guarantee you have is what the Supreme Court has ruled. Tomorrow, let's say, hypothetically, there is bipartisan support to exceed the reservation from 50% to 70%. On what basis, we do not know. Will it be a politically smart move? I don't think so. Right? So, right now, you have a guarantee that it has been fixed at 50%. Right? If it exceeds to 60%, hypothetically, again, people like to edit out these clips, so I'm being very specific. Hypothetically, if the two parties decide, no, we have to take it to 60%, you will have another nightmare, another headache on yourself, that how do you categorize the next 10% on for whom? And for whom? It's not that simple. Look, even at 50%, we have a lot of problems to deal with. So the BJP is taking the easier route. Let's subcategorize, let's reject within the existing framework. The Congress is saying we want to raise that bar. Now, let's say RJD's Tejashwi Yadav says, let's take it to 90% or 85%. He said it in a TV bite rather very casually. How do you decide what's the portion for SCs, STs, and OBCs? Are you going to give them 85%? And if you give it to them in the government sector, what happens to the private sector? Everyone is going to eventually move towards the private sector. That's going to be the future. See, Nirva, I have a philosophical argument, and I'll take a minute here, uh, different from the question. The end of reservations in India, whenever it happens, it won't be when the government says that no more reservations. And I discussed this with Kushal also. We were discussing the role of regional parties one fine day. And I said the regional parties will always bat for reservations because that is how they cater to their minimal voter base, right? But in the long run, people, when they sort of gravitate towards or away from the government sector, reservations themselves will become meaningless. We have to sort of hope that in the next 10, 20, 30 years, we are able to create or cultivate institutions, be it in education, be it in employment, be it in entrepreneurship, that actually create a significant mass of employment that actually takes away this whole sheen from the government sector. Already, if you look at the urban cities in India, a lot of city students, they actually do not aspire for government jobs anymore. That aspiration is long gone. And that's a shift that has happened from the 2000s after this whole urbanization boom struck our nation. And that is where this entire facade with reservations had actually gone down in the urban pockets of India. But we need more of that wealth creation, because I, frankly, as a person, do not hope that any government will bite the bullet on the reservation saying that we are cutting down the reservations, or that there'll ever be bipartisan support as long as we are a multi party system, that okay, let's do away with the reservations. So it has to be an organically sort of evolving process where people themselves say that no, I do not want a government job, I would rather invest that money or time in setting up something that is my own, and the private sector flourishes as it always has, without the sword of reservations or wealth redistribution or all the nonsense Rahul Gandhi talks about.
Nonsense Rahul Gandhi talks about. Good thing, but because that is also the question. In fact, I know it sounds like a broken record, but there is another question by Anay, and I know you have said this, address this this concern, but he also asked the same thing, that that you how do you say yesterday's decision was not influenced by Rahul Gandhi? I know you've said this, you've explained this in a conversation, but for someone who is not so quick with numbers, quick with data, and not politically that aware or clued into what is happening on the social media, or generally reading upon the history of caste census, how do you think, say, having a conversation with a friend of mine who's not that politically aware, politically active,
Mhm.
how would I explain it to him or her that how was yesterday's decision not influenced by Rahul Gandhi? In very simple words, explain.
राहुल गांधी जितनी आबादी उतना हक, or the call for a Jatiya Janaganna or a caste census started in the run up to the 2023 December state elections. However, the BJP in 2021 itself passed the 127th constitutional amendment, which spoke about the subcategorization of OBCs. When Rahul Gandhi talks about the caste census, he talks it in correlation with religion based reservation, with equity, which is wealth redistribution, and also to some extent private sector reservations, which he hinted upon in his presser yesterday when he spoke about Article 15.5. BJP, however, doesn't talk about any of these things. They do not talk about exceeding the 50% limit. They do not talk about religion based reservations. They do not talk about private sector reservations. Do not support any of these. So, this is not about Rahul Gandhi. Rahul Gandhi has been pushing this policy from a different objective. BJP's objective has been very, very different. Think about this. In the COVID period, there were a lot of people, actually, people who were also being interviewed by Rahul Gandhi, certain economists, who were saying that the Modi government should give away helicopter cash to people, like the US was. Say you give people 20,000 rupees, 50,000 rupees, whatever. The government stuck to its instinct and did not give any cash transfers at for the entire population. It did go for an agile reaction to the COVID pandemic. So there can be two very contrasting approaches to something that is common to both the parties. And in this case, I'm trying to tell you that what you think has been started by Rahul Gandhi started long ago in 2021, and what you think has been started by Rahul Gandhi in 2023 started way back in 2011 in Andhra Pradesh, with Andhra Pradesh, when the Congress made a pitch for religion based reservations in the garb of caste census. Hope that
Right.
helps.
I hope it does as well. We have one mind way asking a very interesting question. Do you think this census is to distract people from Pahalgam action because government doesn't want to do anything on Pakistan like military action? They think that the timing is really bizarre of bringing in the caste census just after the Pahalgam terror attack.
I can neither confirm nor deny, as Ethan Hunt would say.
Yeah. Okay, then. Though I don't think it's a distraction. If I may answer on your behalf, I don't think. I think that two different things can happen parallelly in a country because when people say ki, why this, why not that? Well, both can happen at the same time. So
A lot of things happen out of the blue. A lot of things happen out of the blue, right? But you look at how the political narrative has shifted all of a sudden, right? And the
right.
political narrative will shift again, mind you. Mind who asked this question, it will shift again within a couple of days, or maybe 4 days, or maybe a week. So this is not something permanent. Even today, you might think that Rahul Gandhi appears so confident that, oh, there is a caste census happening, and this is the victory of Rahul Gandhi, and the government has surrendered. The last time Rahul Gandhi was this confident, he spoke about winning the state of Haryana and Gujarat in the parliament, and look what happened thereafter. So, again, I'm telling you, whenever you have to, and this is a tip for every viewer or everyone who likes to cover politics. This one thing I've seen with the BJP, it's a pattern I've sensed across the last 11 years, especially in the last 5 years. Never ever analyze any BJP's policy move in isolation. Never ever. It's always working in continuation to something. It's like a very intricate Lego building project. Everything is in continuation of something. It's just something I have sensed while covering the political and policy happenings within the country, which I often comment about on Twitter. That's why when this announcement came yesterday, I just recorded a very short video and I said, look, Rahul Gandhi is asking for something very, very different. I'll give you another example. There is a thing called Lakpati Didi, self-help groups that the Prime Minister has initiated. Rahul Gandhi also talks about a Lakpati Didi, but through a cash handout. The Prime Minister or the BJP says we want to enable women to earn rupees 1 lakh annually. Earn, right? Earn. Rahul Gandhi's Congress says we want to give out rupees 1 lakh rupees annually to women, who are the poorest 20% women of this country. You understand the difference? Giving a man a fish every day and teaching a man how to fish so that he lives or sustains himself for the rest of his life. This is how different these two things are. This has nothing to do with Rahul Gandhi. All the rhetoric you see on social media, everything you see on social media, that these are the same people who were probably thinking that the government has been on the wrong foot in terms of Waqf when the Supreme Court hearing happened. The problem is the policy details. The devil is always in the details. It's not always a simple chemical reaction that, oh, I'll just rant and probably the BJP knows nothing. I mean, that's not how the world works, really.
Right. There's one Roshan Kumar who who's been telling us to ask question, but he has not asked his question yet. So Roshan Kumar, if you're watching this, please ask your questions. Okay, I can ask it further. Meanwhile, there is one Harsh Dua who has asked that if the parties, do you think this could be about Bihar elections? And if the parties just think about short-term gains, who thinks about the countries in the long-term gains?
One, this has nothing to do with the Bihar election. Forget the Bihar election. I don't think even the data gathering will start until the Bihar election. This has nothing to do with the Bihar election. This has more to do with delimitation, right? This has more to do with how the future constituencies will be decided, how the future families policies will be decided. Number two, who thinks about the long run of the future? Absolutely correct. Look, our best hope is that we get to become a 10 trillion economy ASAP, which will happen in the next 10, 15, 20 years, depending on how the world evolves. And once we have ample of wealth creators, we just need to have that nudge where people gravitate towards the private sector and not towards the government sector. It's that simple. If you really care about the long term impact of the country to most of your problems, be it Pakistan, be it reservations, be it, infrastructure, be it rural infrastructure, anything, literally anything per capita, it's all in the pursuit of becoming a $10 trillion economy. The day you become, China will start looking very different. Pakistan will start looking more like an insignificant entity, and Congress's politics will probably not even live to that day. Congress might become far more obsolete, like the communists are, restricted to very few pockets, as we keep on becoming a $10 trillion economy. That is how the long term impact will work. But this is an organic stuff. It can't be a top down approach. If you're thinking that the reservations will be addressed by a top down approach, that's not how it works. It will have to be a bottom approach, and it will take whatever time it takes. You also look at the last 20 years. Since it's a quick question he's asked, Harsh, last 20 years, the craze for a government job, if you are in a city, say Pune or Bangalore or Hyderabad, Chandigarh, Gurgaon, Noida, Delhi, Bombay, anywhere, you see how that craze for government jobs has gone down, which dents the impact for reservation. Why do you think Rahul Gandhi is talking about private sector reservation? Because he knows that if he caters only to the idea of reservation, he doesn't have a significant vote bank to cater to. Because even in the rural areas, people realize that yes, we can keep attempting government exams, say in Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, but while you attempt them, you also have to find a way to generate enough income to sustain yourself, right? That is why this whole charade of private sector reservations will be before us in 2029, and then the BJP will be required to take a hard stance. Right now, they're just not interested in that discussion. They don't even participate or acknowledge that discussion. But at some point, it will come up to say that look, in this country, the private sector will work the way it wants to. Look at the irony of things. In 1991, it was the same Congress that opened up the private sector to the world for the benefit of India, and today, almost 35 years later, their silver spoon scion, Rahul Gandhi, is now telling the private sector that you go back to the days of the license Raj, let your employment be controlled by the government so that the country benefits. So understand, these things are very, these are like some jokes writing themselves.
Right. Okay. One last question before we can conclude this. And this is also one of the very prominent chatters on the social media, that caste census is the complete annihilation of the general category. That the so-called the said upper caste, it is very going to be unfair to them. How do you see that? And this is going to be the last
I
question we
agree.
have.
I agree. I don't think there is any denying that the current reservation setup also, forget if it exceeds or not, or what Congress thinks about it, or what BJP does about it in the future, if it does anything. I think a reservation as an idea is unfair to those who are excluded. It's very unfair. And even the constitution makers did not imagine reservations to go on for this long. That is why I'm saying we are now caught in that mess, in that muck, where we can't expect a top down approach to solve reservations, where a government says that from 12 midnight onwards, there is no more reservation in this country. We are not going to see that day ever. Okay? Not unless we're a multi party system. That also I'm telling you. But your only hope is for the general category, as we have seen the transition in the last 20 years, that you start gravitating towards the private sector, either become an employee with a very esteemed organization or become an employer. Because at the end of the day, a reservation only creates a hysteria for government jobs. Now, you talk about the institutions like IITs or IIMs or wherever there's reservation. I really hope we create a ecosystem where people can actually look at private institutions where there is no problem of reservations, and whoever wants to thrive based on their skilling, based on their ideas, they just can. That's my only hope. That's how I see reservations getting solved in the next 30, 40 years. We don't have to remove reservations. As a country, we have to ensure organically that they become obsolete. And that may appear difficult today, but we've already come a long way in that process. And we just have to go another 20 years and it will become obsolete. Reservations, before being omitted, will become obsolete. That's my understanding.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us today, Tushar, and it has been a great discussion. I'm so glad we had this. I think it has cleared up quite a few doubts and given quite clarification to people. Hopefully, the hysteria around this will calm down, and
No, it won't. No, it won't. See, that's the problem. A
yeah,
lot of
people like to
people.
keep the pot boiling, right?
No,
They
no,
they
no. They
like to
don't
keep
keep
the pot boiling.
they don't like to keep the pot boiling. They like to engage in meaningless rhetoric, rants, and cribbing, endless cribbing, just to make a point that they know better. My problem is how many of the people who were ranting yesterday actually factored in the 127th Amendment passed by the BJP in 2021. That's one thing I always say. And that is why I started my YouTube channel also, where I just do old school breakdown of things like the 90s, that this is the thing, these are the facts, this is it. Our social media economy or our social media ecosystem has been plagued by this outrage economy, which runs on rhetorics. And that is what will be the end of intellects or intellectual discussion on social media. So people should sort of avoid it like they avoided the plague. That's all.
Right. Okay. Just before we were ending, there is one last question. We'll take it. Can BJP get majority on its own in Bihar after the caste census announcement? I'm pretty sure you've answered similarly before. So maybe
Can you
just
repeat the
concluding.
question? Can you repeat the question?
Can BJP get majority on its own in Bihar after the census announcement?
It's very hard to see that right now. It's too early. We are still in May. I don't know how the mood evolves, what kind of policies are introduced by the state government. Can they get a majority? They are best suited, at least better than 2020, to get a majority on their own Bihar. Will that happen? It's too early to say that. At this point, it's
Plus,
too
as we
early.
said that, plus I don't think, as you also correctly discussed, I don't think this was on the lines for Bihar elections.
Nothing to do with Bihar.
So I don't think so. It is on the right tangent. But anyway, thank you so much for joining us today, Tushar, and we'll see you soon on this and other topics. And see you soon. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.